Sporting KC show on Sports Radio 810 WHB is brought to you by your Midwest Ford dealers. Visit them at your MidwestFordDealers.com. And by the Missouri Lottery. Play it forward with the Missouri Lottery.
Good evening, welcome into the show live on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Off weekend for Sporting KC, but that doesn't mean we're short on topics. As you heard, Kerry Zavagnin coming in a little while to assess last month. We discuss the latest headlines in Major League Soccer, plus the World Cup just 63 days away, so we feel a little US men's national team talk is due. We're also live on 810WHBTV.com tonight, so do check us out and you'll see my two colleagues in their rather perfect faces for radio. That's 810WHBTV.com. Callum Williams here, the voice of Sporting KC, guiding you through the next hour. Joining me, Andy Edwards of MLSsoccer.com. Andy, good evening.
Hi.
And it's
thanks for that, by the way.
It's a return to the airwaves for Carter Augustine as well. Carter, good evening. How are you?
Yeah, doing well. It was a long season last year, so I took a nice hiatus to Cambodia just to clear my mind. And I think I'm ready now. I think I'm back.
Lots coming up then on the Sporting KC show. It's going to be an interesting one, isn't it? So first of all, chaps, we'll start with Sporting KC, shall we? As we mentioned, no game for them this coming weekend, so lots more topics to concentrate on later on in the show. But tying 0-0 this weekend, Andy, against Real Salt Lake, what did you take from that game?
Well, first of all, I took the fact that the other 8 games in the league had 31 goals combined in them, and we were lucky enough to be blessed with the only 0-0 game of the weekend, so that was a real joy. I thought, as far as the game, I thought Sporting Kansas City dominated every facet of the game. Statistically, it all bears out, and the eye test, it bears out as well. The two best chances of the game, both Sporting Kansas City. Dom Dwyer one-on-one with Jeff Etanella. Stonewalled. Graham Zusi in the second half, a chance from the left side, pulls it just wide. And so, it's an opportunity to pick up 3 points that they dropped, I think. And I think they'll definitely feel like that. Peter Vermees said so after the game. But at the same time, he also said he thought it was maybe the best performance overall of the season from the team. And so in a vacuum, I guess, taking a point against Real Salt Lake, the team that you beat in MLS Cup final last year, a team that looks like they're very well poised to be right at the top of the standings again this year, supporter shield race, what have you. It's not a bad result, but it's still 2 points dropped, I think, in my mind, given how the game went and the way the chances fell.
Do get involved yourself. Tweet us at Cal Williams SKC, at Andy Ed MLS, and at El Jefe Augustine. You can also give us a call, 913-3810-810. That's 913-3810-810. Carter, Andy mentioned Jeff Atanella standing in for the injured Nick Romando. May have been his best performance ever in Major League Soccer. Only made 6 career appearances, but that's got to be up there with the best, hasn't it?
Oh, it has to be, yeah. What a performance from him. And Real Salt Lake has to be pretty confident going forward in their goalkeeper situation. If Romando does indeed get the call to Brazil, I don't think they'll be losing too much sleep over. Obviously, you lose a lot with Romando. I mean, you look at his all-time ranks in the echelon of MLS goalkeepers, and yeah, he's been up there with the best. He's second in so many categories. So when going into the game, I think Sporting might have looked and said, "Oh, no Romando, no Beltran. We this is a team that could be right for the taking." But Atanella played really well. I thought he commanded his box, and he made a couple big saves when he had to. Which, when you're a visiting goalkeeper, especially in MLS with all this travel, that's something that you're going to have to do. And so, yeah, I was impressed. I was impressed by him.
Andy, you mentioned there were several opportunities for Sporting KC, and one would argue they somewhat peppered Jeff Atanella at some stages throughout the game, but again failing to find the target. Are we recurring a situation that happened last year, and that's really happened over the last few years with Sporting KC? Not a goal-scoring team, are they?
Well, the system that they play, which is very the defense and the midfield is really the base of this team, and so I don't think they're ever going to be a high-flying scoring team. They're not San Jose of a couple years ago where they put 72 goals in a 34-game season. Possession is really important to Sporting Kansas City, and I think you can take more from a game against Real Salt Lake, who a team where possession is an even bigger deal to them, that Sporting Kansas City had so much of it, 56%, really took Salt Lake out of their game completely. And so if you can do that, then you give yourself a chance where you really only need to find the goal once if you can be that sound possession-wise and defensively. And so, yeah, you'd still like to see Sporting Kansas City score a few more goals. Who wouldn't like to see that? But at the same time, Peter Vermeer is very, very happy with every aspect of the game outside of the finishing, I guess.
They don't do a lot of goal scoring, but they do a lot of other things very, very well, Carter. One of those things they do very well is defend. They've done it for a long, long time now. For a few years in Major League Soccer, they've arguably been there at the top end of the defensive situation. Chance Myers came back in for his first start of the season. What did you make of him and the regular back four being together?
Yeah, I think they'll have to be pretty ecstatic about how they played. Can't remember too many tests for Kronberg back there. I think the back four played well in their first game together again this season, and that's just something that this Sporting side has obviously built their success on, is that back line. Just really tough to score on, especially at home. And coming into the game, getting Chance Myers back, there were a few shaky moments early on in the season, maybe with some fullback play that guys weren't used to playing or getting that many minutes. So I think they'll be happy to get Chance Myers back. And it's just a back four that you can tell they've played together so many times. They know when to cover. Beasler and Collin obviously work so well together. And a clean sheet at home, obviously you'd like to score and take 3 points, but that's something to build on. And that's 2 clean sheets at home in a row now. So something definitely that, as Andy said, it's that back line and that midfield is the base. And you have that there. That's always going to be there. You're going to be in every single game. So it's just a matter of converting those chances that you create. That's the next step.
And it is something to build on, getting a clean sheet once again at home, because the one man they kept quiet was Alvaro Sabri, who arguably one of the most feared forwards in Major League Soccer.
Well, is he 55 goals that he scored in his time in MLS?
Yes.
And how many? 110 or so games? I mean, he's
90 starts.
90 start. Okay, so I mean, he's way better than a goal every other start, and so to keep him just really a ghost the entire night, huge for Sporting Kansas City. I thought Luis Gil particularly had a poor game. Some of the statistical numbers on him in that game on Saturday. He completed only 14 passes at 50% on the night. So, that's a very, very bright young player. For Sporting Kansas City to really just mark him out of the game, Yuri Rosell and Paulo Nagamura in there, just negate one of their bigger threats. A whole lot of positives for Sporting Kansas City, obviously.
Lots of positives for Sporting KC. Let me ask you, Carter, being another US men's national team fan in the studio, Benny Feilhaber, what did you make of his performance on Saturday?
He's playing really well this season. I don't think there's any arguing that. And he put in another solid shift. One of those games where maybe you'd like a little more creativity overall. Sporting did create a few chances, but with that possession, maybe one of those passes that could unlock a defense you'd like to see. But from the U.S. standpoint, there's nothing. Benny couldn't do much else this season to try and get a plane ticket. So that's been a real bright spot for Sporting so far this year. I agree more so with Andy. I was more impressed with how they marked most of Salt Lake's threats out of the game. I didn't hear much from Javier Morales. He had an okay game. Gil was non-existent, and that's such a bright young talent. And I don't even how many touches does Saborio get?
Right.
You probably count them on both hands. So from a defensive standpoint, that's where I was impressed. And Benny Feilhaber's done so much better this year at tracking back, and he's actually a force covering a lot more ground. So that's one aspect of his game that I think this year is definitely increased and improved on.
It's the Sporting KC show live on Sports Radio 810 WHB and 810WHBTV.com. Joining us on the line now to recap Sporting KC's first month of the 2014 season, it's assistant coach Kerry Zavagnin. Kerry, good evening. How are you?
Good, Cal. How are you?
Wonderful. Thank you very much for coming on the show. Really appreciate it. Overall then, Kerry, it's been a month into the season now for Sporting KC. How would you assess these first 4 or 5 weeks of the season?
Well, I wouldn't say we're exactly where we need to be or want to be, but I will say that, coming into the year, we knew it was going to be a tough beginning for us from a scheduling standpoint, and obviously with a priority on the Champions League against a team like Cruz Azul, we put a lot of our emphasis into that part. When you look at the task at hand and the fact that we've played over 22, 23 players maybe in the first month here and really have dug deep into our depth, I'd say overall, one loss in the league at this point, you have to be pretty happy about that because you've gotten a opportunities for guys early in the season. And like I said, obviously, the Champions League, we came up a little bit short. A learning experience for us, nevertheless. But I would say definitely not a place where we're content with, but certainly a place where we can build from.
So what's the next step then for this Sporting KC side, Kerry, over the next few months?
Well, I think that you see in the last couple of weeks, particularly since we've been able to kind of get on a schedule of Saturday games, this team is starting to round into form. When you look at the performance against San Jose at home, you look at that as a pretty convincing performance. Obviously, the one in Colorado was overall not the best performance from an aesthetically pleasing perspective, but teams find a way to win when they're not playing at their best, and so you have to take a positive out of that. And I think the Salt Lake game this past weekend was probably our best performance to date, and the only thing that it lacked was the finishing touch, and quite frankly, we could have had maybe 3 goals within that game because we created enough opportunities, and certainly on the defensive end to have Chance and Colin Embiid and Seth in the back line again for the first time this year. It really showed what they're capable of doing in the back.
Plenty of positives for Sporting KC so far. Kerry, you mentioned the defence and Chance Myers coming back, but is there still a frustration up front in the goal-scoring department?
Well, there is a sense of that because we're getting into the final third and the final moments quite easily in many of the games that we play. And look, we're still early in the season. We're probably 7 games in when you count all competitions, and the fact is we have to continue to be better in that capacity. But each and every year we say that at this time of year, and when you look at last year, the championship year, it wasn't like we got off to a stellar start and we were pouring goals in. So we understand the task at hand, and we also understand that when we go on the field, we're playing against teams that are extra charged up to play the reigning champions. So we understand that we have to be better in many different areas, and certainly scoring is one of them.
What about individuals so far this season, Kerry? Has there been certain individuals that have impressed yourself and Peter Vermees so far?
Well, I think Eric Kronberg has done a very good job in stepping into the big shoes that Jimmy Nielsen left for us. Obviously, there's been a few hiccups along the way, but it's something that you would expect from a guy that hasn't had the reps in games over the course of his career. So I think his presence in goal has really stabilized the group in the back, and the confidence within him is growing every day, not only with the staff but with the players as well. I would point to the emergence of Beasler as his form is really coming around. Obviously, the Mexico game, and now the game this past weekend was probably one of the best games he's played in his entire career here in Kansas City. So he's building the momentum as he looks towards the summer with the World Cup, but also with his club team. And I'd have to single out Benny Feilhaber, a guy that has done a tremendous job for us in becoming more of a two-way player. We saw that at the end of the year last year in the playoffs, where he really started to become as much a ball winner as he was a creator. So he's rounding into a very complete player, and it's disappointing from look, I'm from my perspective that he's not getting a look into the national team, because as of right now, I can't pick out too many midfielders that would be above him within that player pool.
And just finally, Kerry, obviously an off weekend for Sporting KC. What's the mindset in training over the next few days?
Well, there's a few things we have to hit on both the defensive and the attacking side. It gives us an opportunity to train a little bit more individually functional training and get into our lines a little bit more and work specifically on some tendencies within the defensive and the midfield and the attacking pieces. And obviously the point that we're hitting on a little while ago is that we need to spend more time around the goal, certainly in training, to become a little more proficient in that area. But it's a good time, I think, for the break with the guys this weekend, because it'll recharge some of the batteries that have been depleted a little bit over the course of this beginning, and obviously get some of the healthy bodies ready for the next phase of the season.
Kerry Zavagnin, thank you very much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
No problem, Cal. Thank you.
That was Kerry Zavagnin, the assistant coach of Sporting KC. And Andy, before we go to break, the one man that you both singled out seems to be impressing the coaching staff as well, Benny Feilhaber.
Yeah, absolutely, and you can tell there's a little bit of extra motivation for Benny to start the year this year, and he's also got that fitness foundation as well from 2013 to really start the season as the player that we know he can be and the player that we thought he was going to be when he was acquired in December 2012. And look, it's no coincidence that his best soccer came during Sporting's best run late in the season in the playoffs in 2013. He's definitely a player where, as the Eastern Conference, so many teams got so much stronger over the offseason. Sporting Kansas City somewhat stood pat with what they had, and you don't want to make a bunch of changes to a championship-winning team. But if Benny Feilhaber is able to find another level, that's really almost like another signing for Sporting Kansas City, because the quality that he can bring to the team on his day, it's really unmatched by anybody else in Major League Soccer.
Still lots coming here on the Sporting KC show. Coming up after the break, we recap the last 7 days in Major League Soccer.
50,000 watts.
Whatever you require for audio, video, and broadcast solutions, it's Professional Video Supply. PVS is a leading supplier and integrator of pro video and audio gear for the Midwest. For the boardroom, worship, production houses, medical facilities, TV stations, and sports networks, PVS has it. Canon, Sony, Yamaha, Sharp, and hundreds of others. From a single camera or touchscreen display to an entire TV studio, remember Professional Video Supply, the official video source for 810 WHB TV and PVSKC.com. PVSKC.com.
Get into the EcoBoost Challenge at your local Ford dealer and get ready to get floored. That's right, during the EcoBoost Challenge at your Midwest Ford dealers, see for yourself why Ford is a step above the competition. Plus, for a limited time, you'll get big cash back, low APR financing, and great lease offers on Ford's full line of fuel-sipping cars, trucks, and SUVs. Don't miss out. Go online to yourmidwestforddealers.com, then visit your Midwest Ford dealer to take the EcoBoost Challenge today. Not all buyers will qualify. Incentives vary by model. See dealer for complete details.
Springtime is finally here, and that means it's a great time to get your home painted. I've been telling you about CertaPro painters for a few years now because they always do an outstanding job from start to finish. CertaPro is North America's largest and most referred home painting company, and they're also your local neighborhood painter. It's the best of both worlds, really. When you call 1-800-GO-CERTA, you'll reach your local CertaPro professional. They'll handle all your needs, from getting an estimate, picking colors, completing the job, all the way through cleanup. CertaPro is top-notch all the way through the process. I know, because they've been great for me every time I've used them, so I speak from personal experience. That number again is 1-800-GO-CERTA. You can also find them online at CertaPro.com. Remember, that's CERTA with a C. The website is a great resource to see examples of completed projects, choose colors, and research financing. You can even schedule a free painting estimate there. Your home is likely your biggest investment. Let CertaPro help you protect it from the harsh KC climate. Call them up at 1-800-GO-CERTA or check them out online at CertaPro.com. It's CertaPro Painters, because painting is personal.
Overtime is a brand new sports bar in Overland Park. This sports bar has 50 beers on tap and over 120 craft beer bottles. Never miss a second on their 36 51-inch flat screens. They even have a 150-inch projector to make your favorite game come to life. Free Wi-Fi and outlets at every booth makes it the perfect lunch spot or fantasy football headquarters. Overtime is open till 2 a.m. daily and is located at the southwest corner of 135th.
Here we go.
Them at 913-814-0.
Welcome back into the Sporting KC show, live on Sports Radio 810 WHB and, of course, 810WHBTV.com. Callum Williams here, alongside Andy Edwards and Carter Augustine. And as we mentioned at the top of the show, boys, it was a rather bizarre weekend in Major League Soccer, wasn't it? And the headline, undoubtedly, the I-5 derby, Portland 4, Seattle 4, Andy.
Can't get much better than that, can it? I mean, you got everything literally that you wanted in that game. You had an early goal 3 minutes into the game. Kenny Cooper gets on the board for Seattle. They go up 1-0 on the road. You're thinking, wow, this Portland team is really struggling right now. They still don't have a win all season long. And then Portland go up 2-1. 2-2 at halftime, and Portland go back up 4-2, and then Clint Dempsey scores 2 more in 83rd, 85th so minute, 4-4 final. I mean, Clint Dempsey gets a hat trick. Literally everything that could have happened in this game did, and I just thought, neither of these teams are going to score that much every single week. But it's nice when the big hype games really live up to the expectations and everything that we talk about. I think Seattle will probably be the happier of the sides from this game, not only for the fact that they were the away team, not only for the fact that they were able to steal the point late, but I think they just look so much more settled in this game than Portland did. Portland really, outside of a couple of great strikes from Diego Chara, I don't feel like they really were a part of this game for the most part. I feel like Seattle, a lot of the game was in control of possession. They were really dominating that midfield, and it just, I don't know. Portland is not the same team that they were last year. I don't know what it is, but I think they look better going forward. Not having Gaston Fernandez in there, Khalif Al-Hassan kind of actually provided width for them, and so it wasn't 5-6 guys really trying to work there in that middle of the field. He spread the field a little bit, and that's why the game was so open, back and forth, 4 goals aside.
For me, Portland Timbers this year trying to play through certain individuals too much, but that's another subject for another evening show. Carter, Clint Dempsey, talking of the US men's national team, I know it's only one game, but as a USA fan, how delighted were you to see him finally break what many would see as some sort of hoodoo in Major League Soccer? Didn't get off to the best of starts in this league, but a very good performance on Saturday.
Yeah, good performance, and as an American soccer fan, obviously you're hoping that he can build a little bit of momentum going into the World Cup. Maybe they can keep drawing games too, Seattle. That's not a bad thing either. But at the end of the day, it does look like he and Obafemi Martins are starting to get on the right mindset together, get on the same page. He came in at a tough time last year. It seemed like he upset the balance, really. Seattle was playing pretty well when he came in, and he wasn't in necessarily the best playing shape. Took him a while. He was hurt, getting into the side. So I think that had a lot to do with his, what can be seen as overall pretty poor performance for last year's season for Dempsey. This year it just looks like he and Oba Martins are starting to click a little bit together, and I think that bodes well for the Sounders, obviously, and getting a little confidence back into Deuce's mind is going to be helpful for the U.S. team as well. If you remember, he went on that huge tear last year for the U.S. Going into last year, and then kind of cooled off. So hopefully he's picking up some heat at the right time of year again.
And Andy, quite surprisingly to many, I think, after his year with FC Dallas last year, a man with service always seems to deliver. Kenny Cooper scoring in the early stages of the game. Carter mentioned certain individuals gelling there with Seattle Sounders. Is it just a matter of time before Kenny Cooper gets off to the races as well?
Yeah, I think it's a decent partnership. Him and Obafemi Martins as the 2 true strikers, and then Clint Dempsey just playing just a little bit deeper than them. You need a big target man if you're going to play with 2 up top like the Sounders are, and so from that aspect, I think he's a good fit there, and he'll score some goals there. Look what he did a couple of years ago, like you said, when he was with Dallas, and he scored goals when he was with New York for a season as well. So anywhere Kenny Cooper goes, he scores goals, except Portland for that year that he was there. I guess he didn't have the greatest season there, but yeah, that's a really really intimidating attacking 3 coming at you. Don't care what backline, you don't care if you're Sporting Kansas City and you've got that great 4 back there that we talked about earlier. They're going to score goals. The problem is what's going on at the back with the Sounders. They so much turnover back there. I think it'll help though that when they get Leo Gonzalez back week in and week out to just kind of stabilize that. But now they're going to be this year what we thought they would be last year when they brought in Clint Dempsey. They're going to be a top 2 or 3 team in the Western Conference, and they're going to be tough to beat. They're going to be able to outscore a lot of teams.
Let's move on to the Eastern Conference for a moment anyway. Columbus Crew falling at home to Toronto FC. This was quite a surprise for me, Carter, because Columbus Crew under Greg Berhalter have had a wonderful start, their best in years. Michael Bradley off the mark in Major League Soccer. What was your initial thoughts when you saw the result from Crew Stadium?
Yeah, I was actually surprised too with how well Berhalter has had the Crew playing this year. We got a chance to see that down in Orlando. They actually looked really sharp in preseason, which was a little surprising to me. A lot of teams down there were really rusty. It just seemed that he had ignited them with a little more energy than they'd been playing, especially last year. And he's got Higuain playing in that different role this year, which has seemed to have worked pretty well so far. So yeah, that home game, I think what it shows is less on Columbus and more so about Michael Bradley and about Toronto FC and how they're actually going to be a playoff team this year. Like they're gonna be pretty good.
That was actually going to be my next question. Is Columbus Crew have had a great start, as we say, but it just shows how good Toronto FC potentially can be this year. Correct?
Yeah, well,
surely.
Yeah, put Michael Bradley and Jermaine Defoe into any.
Well, Defoe wasn't even playing.
Well, sure, but in terms of the entire season,
right.
Yeah, they're going to be very, very good. And I think the people that said, well, you can't just bring in 2-star players and really change a team, yes, you can. And they've done it, and it's worked already this early in the season. Like you said, without Defoe even in this game on Saturday. I was still fairly impressed with Columbus, though. They have this philosophy now under Greg Berhalter. They're going to be heavy on the possession, a lot like Real Salt Lake. They'll do it with a different formation, but the ideals and the philosophy is to really possess and control the game. And even after they went down a goal after 11 minutes, they didn't get away from that. They didn't say, well, we're down a goal, we have to chase the game, we have to get everybody forward, we have to hit long balls to try and get one back real quick. No, they stuck and stayed playing their style of soccer that they're going to play. And so I think over the course of a 34-game season, that's going to serve them really well, that they really have that kind of belief in the system, that even when things aren't going their way, they don't get away from it. They don't quickly scrap it and just go back to what they're used to, go back to what they think might work better. And so they're a playoff team. They're absolutely a playoff team. Both of these teams are. And so you look at the rest of the Eastern Conference, you got Sporting Kansas City, pretty sure they're going to be a playoff team. You got 2 spots open for about 6 teams. There's one team in the Eastern Conference really that looks like they have maybe 2, I guess you could say Montreal and DC United. Those 2 are out. You've got, 5 teams now fighting for 2 spots. The Eastern Conference is nuts.
Yeah, I agree. It's nuts, but I don't think you can quite count people out just yet. It is only the start of the season.
You can
I know what you're saying,
and see
right.
that the ceiling is the
floor. There are teams that
basically
are considerably better than other teams in this Eastern Conference.
Well, I think it's more so that there's a couple teams that are just considerably worse. And,
right.
They were bad last year, and they didn't do anything to really improve this year.
Talking of teams that were bad last year, but seem to have made a significant improvement under a new manager this year, Chivas USA. That improvement not on the agenda this weekend, Carter, falling at home to LA Galaxy by 3-0.
Yeah, they got taken out back of the woodshed by their big brothers again. It's been what's the word I'm looking for? It's been nice, I guess, that Chivas is actually providing some decent play this year.
It's been a feel-good story.
Yeah, a feel-good story, if you will. I mean, I thought it was just going to be a throwaway year, is what I really thought. I mean, going into next year, what they're doing is going to transition into a different club, and it was going to be interesting to see how they treated this year and how things transpired. But I mean, you got Cubo Torres up there, firing away. That's not a bad weapon to have for him, and it looks like they're going to try to make a good go of this. And so, yeah, it's been a good start for the season for them. Unfortunately, just ran into a buzzsaw. At the end of the day, I just think the Galaxy are just so much better, and I think it showed on Sunday. I just don't see in the near future Chivas getting up to the Galaxy's level. I mean, it'll depend on what they do going forward, but I wasn't surprised by the result, despite their good start.
And this is funny, actually, because you mentioned a quote there about the Galaxy's standard and just how good they've been.
I think we're on the same page here.
How good are the Galaxy this year, Andy?
I don't think they're that good. I don't think they're definitely not nearly as good as they were the 2 years they won MLS Cup in 2011 and 2012. I mean, you're starting Leonardo at center back. We saw the adventure, we'll say, that he had in Champions League against Tijuana. He was an absolute disaster. You're down to your 3rd string right back at this point, or excuse me, left back. Right back. I had it right the first time. Dan Gargan is starting at right back for you. Now he's hurt as well. Who are they going to have at right back? The midfield really doesn't inspire a ton of confidence. You've got Baggio Husidic starting in there. Robbie Keane is going to score goals. We know that. But the big question for me, and this is tough for me to say, is what player is Landon Donovan right now? He's 5 games going back to last year without scoring a goal in MLS play. He looks way off the pace of the rest of the team so far this year going forward. He's got the scoring record hanging over his head every single week. He's 1 goal from breaking it. He has been for, going back to 2013. And he just doesn't look like the same player that he's been for the last 10 or 12 years. He's lost a step, absolutely. And that's been one of the big parts of his game, is he's always had that in those short spaces, that burst that he could blow by absolutely anybody. And now if that's gone, can he, kind of reinvent himself as a bit of a different player where he can transition into the later years of his career? For example, a player like a Ryan Giggs, who as a young kid was just an out-and-out winger, just ran by everybody. Now, or the last couple of years or so when he was effective, was able to play through the center and really use his mind to beat people more so than the legs. We'll see. Scary for the World Cup as well, because it seems like Landon Donovan is kind of really hitting that wall quickly. And, nobody wants to see that. I don't.
Perhaps he needs to spend a month in Cambodia. Maybe. We'll see.
Can't do it every year.
No. With all due respect, I think Landon Donovan will be fine. He's just having a bit of a slow start. As we stay on the subject of last weekend in Major League Soccer, chaps, it was rivalry week, and Houston Dynamo falling dramatically at home to their rivals, FC Dallas, by 4-1, Carter.
Yeah, I think that could be a big blow to Houston's psyche. They had come in with a couple of nice, not really nice, but they look solid at home against maybe not the best opponents, but they'd started off well at home, and I think this may hurt him. I've just been impressed by FC Dallas. Mauro Diaz, of all 5 sporting games this year, he's been the away player, the opposition player that I've been most impressed with. I thought he came in and I mean, it was a 1-1 draw, but some of the moves that he has and the turns, and he's so quick and in his lateral movement, just really impressed by him. And I know that they've started off with their best start in club history, which they beat last year by 1 point. So maybe it's not maybe it is smoke and mirrors again. I don't want to rag on Schellas Hyndman at all, but I think Pareja may just be able to see them over the line and get them into playoffs. I really think they're a dangerous team, and I love this Diaz player. I love watching him play. Definitely worth the price of admission. So, and obviously Pareja has so much experience working with the academy, knows a lot of their younger players. I think that was a really great hire by Dallas, and I've been more impressed with them than any other team.
Yeah, I think Houston's played 2 good teams this season. They played Vancouver and they played Dallas. They lost both games. They played New England. They played Montreal. They won those 2. And so early in the season, they looked like they were going to be really good. I have questions, though, about Dallas and their kind of staying power, whether they can continue this. And I've got some stats here. I was just kind of looking into them a little bit deeper today because, how is this team doing this? Because we didn't expect this in year 1 under Oscar Pareja. And really, it's miraculous what they're doing if you listen to some of these numbers. They take the fewest shots per game in MLS, 9.2. They have the third fewest shots per game on target as well, only 3.6. They scored 4 goals on Saturday. They scored more goals than they average shots on target per game. And so, can they keep that up? I don't think they can. And then on the other side of the field, they concede the third most shots of any team in the league. So I really feel like, and maybe, this is just numbers giving a little bit of a false sense, but I really feel like once those numbers, they kind of regress to the average of what those numbers are saying, they're going to score a lot less and they're going to give up a lot more. And so once that happens, I would imagine they fall back into the pack in the Western Conference, because we know there's some very, very good teams out there that are struggling early on. I see them probably as a 4 or 5 team at best in the Western Conference. Maybe they miss the playoffs as well, but I think they sneak in probably in that elimination game of the playoffs. I just don't know if they can keep that up all year. I kind of feel like they're living on the edge at the moment. At any moment, they're gonna kind of fall off a little bit.
Yeah, that red card certainly helped them, and that is how they got the 4 goals. So I can definitely see that point. I think if they do get to the playoffs, they have enough with Castillo on the left. He's got so much pace, and with Diaz, that I think they could be dangerous. So yeah, it is an interesting story to see if Pareja, because they like Andy mentioned, they started off hot last year and just petered out. So it'll be interesting if Pareja can keep them going.
Move back over to the Eastern Conference, and a trade that I think it's safe to say raised several eyebrows around Major League Soccer early last week. Jack McInerney traded to Montreal. It was a straight swap for Andrew Wenger, who went to Philadelphia Union. The rumours were, and the reports were saying a few days after the trade was made, that Jack McInerney's contract is up with the league at the end of the year, hence why the Union went to make this trade. But Andy, what did you think of this when you first saw it happen?
I would obviously Montreal get the better player of the deal. Andrew Wenger going to Philadelphia, Jack McInerney being 2 years younger than Wenger as well, has a considerably larger body of work in Major League Soccer. He scored far more goals in his time in the league. It is a little bit curious with the contract situation. I think they'll probably get that taken care of. Montreal are more than happy to spend money, I think, on the right player. It's a good move for them. I think obviously they're going to struggle to score goals if it's only Marco Di Vaio that you can really count on week in and week out. Andrew Wenger's not exactly going to fill up the bucket all season long, and so give Marco Di Vaio a little bit of help. But I still don't know where the chances are going to come from for them, because you can't really play those two together. I don't think in a 4-4-2. They're almost an identical player. 15 years from now, maybe McInerney is exactly what Di Vaio is, and so it's going to be a bit of a weird partnership. The midfield still doesn't inspire a whole lot of confidence for me, and I've been saying for weeks now, I don't see Montreal doing anything this season at all. And they're still going to give up goals. They gave up 2 goals to the New York Red Bulls without Thierry Henry, without Tim Cahill. Pagui Luyendula started at forward for the Red Bulls, and they still scored twice. Come on.
Yeah, conceding goals very much to the frustration of Matteo Ferrari. Carter, the interesting thing for me is, as Andy was just briefly talking about there, bringing in Jack McInerney to Montreal, it's a very Frank Klopas-esque signing, staying within Major League Soccer. But you just can't see Di Vaio and McInerney playing up front together. There's no chance they're going to change the system, surely.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. Like Andy said, they're pretty much the same player. For McInerney, I think it could wind up being a great career move for him. He gets the chance to learn off Di Vaio, get to see in training every day those little runs that Di Vaio makes in between the center halves and how he creates space. He's one of the best at 2 touches in the box. First touch, create space. Second touch, it's on frame. And I think from that standpoint, that might benefit Jack McInerney. But Hackworth already came out and pretty much said they weren't going to be able to keep him. That's why they traded him. And my question becomes, what's the direction here for Montreal? As you guys have mentioned, they're pretty much the same player. Are you playing them together? Di Vaio's gone at the end of the season, so you would think that they're hoping to keep him. But are they certain they can keep McInerney? I'm not so sure they can. He might want to try other options. So you think with this move they're looking towards the future. I mean, they didn't give up a whole lot, to be honest with you.
No.
But if in the end they aren't able to sign McInerney after this year, then it just doesn't make that much sense at all. And like you guys have said, I don't see them playing together. So for this year, they're a team that made no moves in the offseason. It looks like the direction isn't all straight. It looks like they're kind of wobbling around and maybe don't have the best plan for the future.
One more subject on Major League Soccer before we go to break here, chaps. There was a report a few days ago that Atlanta may be coming into Major League Soccer in 2017. Reportedly, they're going to be backed by the NFL's Atlanta Falcons owner Arthur Blank. Reports suggest that the new Atlanta team will play in the new NFL stadium the Falcons are set to acquire. Similarities for the Sounders, maybe, some people have been saying, but also there's a lot of people that are slightly worried about this because of the market they're in, Andy. Where do you stand here?
Yeah, I'm definitely worried about it. We've had success with expansion teams in cities like Portland and Seattle. But these are cities that had teams in lower divisions before, and so there was a base from which to build. There was albeit a small fan base for these teams in the lower divisions. There was something to start with, and there was infrastructure in place as well, and there was a coach with a vision. There were a few players that were brought up to MLS as well, and so it's going to be the same thing with New York City FC. It's going to be the same thing with Miami. These brand new expansion teams that are being built from nothing. I don't like that strategy. I think there's a whole lot of value to having, even if it's just 2 or 3 years, like Orlando have had down there in Florida, just having something to build on and just day in and day out having that structure of the team. I think in a perfect world, Atlanta's a great market for MLS to get into. It's a major market. It fills another one of those southeast voids that the league has said that they really want to fill. But I just don't know, like I said, if this is the kind of the pretense that we want to get into that there. as far as what is success for Atlanta, I think forget Seattle, forget Portland. It's not going to be that because, like I said, it's brand new. I think a great comparison for what is to come in Atlanta would be Philadelphia.
Right.
It was a team that there was nothing there beforehand. It's a major major market where it's a third, fourth, fifth level team. There's an NBA team, there's an NHL team, there's an NFL team, there's a Major League Baseball team. So I mean, for all intents and purposes, they're going to start out day one as number 5 in that city. If they can do at least what Philadelphia has done to be somewhat relevant in that massive market, then you can say that it's a success. But do you want like these mild successes? Are you okay with that in a big market rather than maybe somewhere smaller where it can be a huge deal, say San Antonio or Minneapolis, something like that?
Councillor Andy mentioned that he wasn't too happy with this because there was no team there before. The Sounders have come into MLS as a USL Pro team, as of Portland Timbers. But would you be any more happy with this situation if it was the Silverbacks coming into Major League Soccer from NASL?
I think Andy makes a great point there. It's definitely nice to have some roots and actually have, an organization that has done work in the community, kind of knows, and obviously Arthur Blank knows Atlanta, and they're going to do their due diligence. But my main concern is at the end of the day, going down into the Southeast, I understand why they're trying to get down into the South, and especially Atlanta, as we've mentioned, huge TV market, huge, top 5, top 10. But at the end of the day, it just seems like in the Southeast, it's all college football and no other sports get supported. In Atlanta, the Braves won 13 or so straight division titles. They had a tough time getting fans to the ballpark. No one goes to Hawks games. I mean, that's an NBA team, and yeah, they've been bad most of their history, but no one goes to those games. The Thrashers failed. Their NHL team failed because they didn't get anyone there. Even the Falcons have a tough time drawing fans, and so I don't know if it's just an apathy towards pro sports in that area or what it's all about. But I do have some concerns over whether or not they will get the support that they need. And at the end of the day, we all kind of saw this coming, that Atlanta was going to be one of the teams.
Yep.
But what it does is it leaves one spot left in this 24 that Garber had talked about. And yeah, I do have my concerns. So obviously I wish the best of luck. And if they do work out, it's a huge TV market, so that could help for the future. But there are some concerns there.
Lots more coming up here on the Sporting KC show. Do stay tuned as we continue our chat about MLS and the US men's national team.
This is Sports Radio 810 WHB.
Playbook, take 1, rolling.
The new Lucky Sevens playbook from the Missouri Lottery has 6 pages of scratches tickets with a top prize of $250,000. Norma, we could be contenders.
Cut. What was that?
Character development. Something actors do in plays.
It's not that kind of playbook.
It has 122 chances to win. Just give me another 122 chances, Norma.
Please stop.
Every playbook gives back to education, so play it forward with the Missouri Lottery.
Ford is taking the EcoBoost Challenge coast to coast, asking people like you to test drive Ford versus our leading competitors.
We want to find out which vehicle you prefer, and may the best car win.
Let's do this. I've never driven a Ford before, and I'm impressed.
They're experiencing the power and efficiency of available EcoBoost engine technology.
Wow! This car can go! It blew the competition away for me. Ford is totally on my radar now.
Get into the EcoBoost Challenge at your local Ford dealer and get ready to get floored. That's right, during the EcoBoost Challenge at your Midwest Ford dealers, see for yourself why Ford is a step above the competition. Plus, for a limited time, you'll get big cash back, low APR financing, and great lease offers on Ford's full line of fuel-sipping cars, trucks, and SUVs. Don't miss out. Go online to yourmidwestforddealers.com, then visit your Midwest Ford dealer to take the EcoBoost Challenge today. Not all buyers will qualify. Incentives vary by model. See dealer for complete details.
Nobody does steak and cheese like Subway. Stop by today for a tasty trio of steak subs that covers the full spectrum of flavor. Our hunger-busting steak and bacon melt is always a classic. Or kick it up a notch with the Chipotle steak and cheese. And if you want to bring the heat, try the Sriracha steak melt. Each member of this toasty trio is topped with melty cheese on your choice of freshly baked bread. Treat your taste buds at Subway today. Subway, eat fresh.
Limited time only at participating restaurants.
Walgreens knows that Medicare prescription drug plan users feel good at the corner of picking up prescriptions and saving some money. Now we want to help you save even more. Just switch and save. This year at Walgreens, Medicare Part D customers could save with copays as low as $0 on select Part D plans. Stop in today and we'll do the rest. Walgreens, at the corner of happy and healthy.
$0 copay applies to Tier 1 generics.
Do you know your credit score? Have you checked it lately? Find it. Well, Discover Card is changing all that. Because Discover is the only credit card that gives you your FICO credit score for free every month on your statement and online. It doesn't get much easier than that. And knowing your credit score is important. It can have a real impact when you're looking for a car, a place to live, or even a job. It's just another way we treat you like you treat you. Discover Card. Free FICO credit score online and on your statement. To get yours, go to discover.com or call 1-800-DISCOVER. Limitations apply.
Here we go. Gonna have about 6 minutes here. Gonna have about 6 minutes.
Welcome into the final segment of the Sporting KC show here live on Sports Radio 810 at WHB and 810WHBTV.com. Callum Williams alongside Andy Edwards and Carter Augustine. The World Cup just 63 days away, whilst many USA internationals are enjoying themselves, particularly those in Major League Soccer. Several US players are having a tough time of it at the moment elsewhere, aren't they? We've got to concentrate on Jozy Altidore in a moment, but first of all, let me bring up something that was brought up in the media today. Brek Shea, not getting a game for Stoke, had a decent loan spell at Barnsley before he attacked a fan. Toronto FC GM Tim Bezbatchenko, beg your pardon, came out and said, when asked if he'd be interested in Brek Shea, his quote was, "Yes, 100%. Andy, not only would that be a case of the rich getting richer for Toronto FC, but surely it would be a good move for Brek Shea.
Yes, yeah. I mean, anywhere Brek Shea can go now and get playing time, I think would be a good move for Brek Shea, even if it's down to League One in England. I mean, he really needs to play.
It's not League One.
You know, he's been with Stoke for a year and a half now, and he's has he even made a first team appearance for them?
Several, not many,
a handful. So especially if he thinks he's going to the World Cup. I know he's come on late as a substitute for the national team a handful of times and made an impact. But other than that, he hasn't done anything for 24 months since he was, in a hot spell for FC Dallas before he went to Europe. So, yeah, I mean, I guess it'd be good for him, but it's not exactly a slam dunk move. I don't think going to Toronto. I've got some good players. I don't know if he even starts for them at the moment the way he's played. He'd have to come in and probably be a sub for a little while and show that he should be a starter.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. I mean, it may be too little too late for Brek Shea, to be honest. I know the one thing that I think he does have in his pocket is that Klinsmann seems to really rate him. I mean, and no matter what he's been doing over Klinsmann reign, Jurgen has called him in no matter his form. So that's one positive that Brek Shea can look at. That being said, yeah, I mean, even if he moves to MLS, he doesn't have that much time. Like you said, 63 days till the World Cup. What type of impact can he make in that short period of time that can get him a ticket over someone? At this point, does he go over Julian Green? Does he go over Julian Green? I don't think he can.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I think he's that far down on the pecking order right now.
He's just such a frustrating player.
Yeah.
Like, the talent's obviously there. Everything's there. It's just like it's a mental thing. It's an attitude thing. It's a want to thing. He just doesn't want to do it. He wants to live the life of being a pro player in Europe. He doesn't want to put in the work. And I don't want that on my MLS team if I'm a fan.
One player who's been accused of that in recent weeks is Jozy Altidore, and the situation that's going on there, clearly frustrating for US national team fans. 2 goals in 35 games in all competitions since his move to Sunderland. No goals since December 4th, 2013. Dropped to the Sunderland U21 roster on Monday after they were smashed by Andy's Tottenham Hotspur. It's a very frustrating, a very fragile incident at the moment here with Jozy Altidore, because I was doing some research today and looking just where he could possibly go on loan just to play, because that's all he needs, boys, isn't it? He needs games. Are we potentially about to see him move back to Major League Soccer? Because that's what we all want, isn't it?
Yes and no. He's shown
in this situation,
he's shown that he can do it in Europe. Granted, it was Holland, and everybody scores goals in Holland, and then they go to a real league where they play real defense, and they don't score as many goals. I just think it was a terrible move to go to Sunderland. We said it all summer long when it was being talked about. It didn't make sense then. It obviously doesn't make sense now. I think I'm not worried about Josie Altidore, though. I'm really, really not. And I had numbers that I had tweeted a while back, and this is something that I've been feeling for a while. I'm not worried about it. He's got a history of being poor or not even playing at all for club teams. And the second he comes into U.S. national team camp, he steps on the field in a game for the U.S., he scores goals. It doesn't matter to him. He's almost better when he's not playing well for his club team. He's only had 2 scoreless seasons for the U.S. since he became a regular in 2007. Both of those seasons were while he was playing for club teams very well. And in his best seasons, 2009, 2013, when we were qualifying for World Cups both years, he had great years for the national team. 2009, that was the year he was with Hull. Mm-hmm. He scored 1 goal 2 games into his time there, and he did absolutely nothing the rest of the time there. I mean, Josie Altidore is an enigma. He's great for the U.S., horrible for club team. At this point, I'm not even worried. I don't even care what Josie does the rest of the year at Sunderland, as long as he shows up ready for the World Cup. Look what he did. We were talking about it during the break. Hat trick against Bosnia back in September. Right. That's when he was having some of his worst times at Sunderland. I don't think it matters for this guy. I really don't.
Kelsey, you share the same opinion?
Well, I was one, actually, during the summer that I thought the move to Sunderland was a good move. So obviously that has not panned out. I thought being able to test himself against Premier League center halves
1 minute
out would be fantastic for him. It hasn't worked out. They bring in the new manager who he was obviously brought in by Di Canio to be Di Canio's guy. So then there's a little bit of a slight there. My problem with Josie is he goes on the international break, says some disparaging comments about his manager's tactics, and that's why he gets dropped from the 18. That's why he's not even on the bench. That's why he's playing with the U21s. That's not a good sign. However, I agree with Andy, and that's one thing we have with the U.S. team is that our guys seem to
30
play when they put on the shirt. So I'm not too worried about Josie going into the World Cup. He seems to have good chemistry with the U.S. players, and I think he'll turn it right back around in Brazil.
My thanks to Andy Edwards and Carter Augustine and Rob, our producer here at Sports Radio 810 WHB. That'll just about do it.
15.
We return next Tuesday, 7 p.m. Central on Sports Radio 810 WHB. From all of us here on the Sporting KC show, it is good night.